Hey everyone, and welcome back to Bridging the Gap. Make sure to leave a like on this video down below and subscribe. My name is Alvin. I lean right on most issues, and I'll be representing the Republican side.
My name is Luke. I lean left on most issues, and I'll be representing the Democratic side. Hey guys, so in this video, Alvin and I will be looking at the state of our country's public officials, basically how favorably they are perceived, their approval ratings, and stuff like that, and how those statistics have changed after the 2024 presidential election and going into January 2025.
Yeah, so Merry Christmas, guys. We're now past really the main holidays, and we're looking now to the new year, 2025, and looking at the direction of the country right now. If Americans seem to be very bleak about about the direction of the country at all times. Um, usually after a new, president comes into office, there's a little honeymoon period, and then it goes back down to wherever. And maybe we'll see that jump come once Trump gets in office. Although, it's sort of interesting because Trump usually doesn't get that big of a bounce. And so now that we're looking at the future, now that we're past the 2024 election, we'll be looking at uh, different people on how they did, how they are viewed favorably now, and some other interesting polling data. So I guess we'll start with the current president.
Yeah, I mean, Biden has pretty much stayed where he's been where he was since 2021, I believe, after like his favorability first kind of cratered in 2021 after Afghanistan and that whole fiasco. He's kind of just stayed really unpopular. The election, him dropping out of the 2024 election and the election result hasn't really changed how he's been perceived, just consistently negative. Um, yeah, I mean, whether or not that's deserved, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess you could look at it and see. I think personally, I think as a Democrat, I think you look at our recovery from the COVID pandemic compared to the world, and I think he did an okay job as president. He's obviously not going to be real. I don't think he's going to be much of a significant one looking into the history books, but it's still notable how he led us out of the pandemic. Um, but yeah, I think his legacy is going to be largely marred by inflation and how his main goal, which he stated with t keeping Trump out of office, is essentially been a failure. So yeah,
Yeah, his legacy is probably going to be marked by his awful presidential debate. That might honestly be
yes,
what
that
what
too.
most people are going to remember him by. I mean, most of these spikes, of course, the Afghanistan spike, you had the Roe v. Wade spike, which I don't know, I guess people blamed him for, and then you had the cost of living slowly growing to very unfavorables, and then
hmm
you had this post-debate spike, and then now, we're sort of at the same place, although he has gone down a little further since the election happened. So Biden, I don't think he's going to be viewed very well, though maybe he'll be viewed okay by historians, but we'll just have to see.
hmm
Trump, on the other hand, has been going up and up. He's never been viewed favorably ever until basically a few weeks ago when he has finally crossed the threshold, although he's back now to unfavorable. But honestly, very big step for him because even back in, post-election in 2016, he never got this
Yeah.
close. He never got to a favorable rating or to net zero, which he is right now. Very good for him. I think truly remarkable how he was able to do that, post January 6th. Obviously, he got to this really bad point, although, this was basically also Biden's lows. He had several lows further after that. I mean, post 2022, when Republicans lost, a lot of Republicans even soured on him, fell all the way to 36% favorable. Now he's about to be the president. He is coming in with a very strong approval, a favorability rating for him.
Yes. I mean, comparatively, I mean, obviously, as you can see here, Trump is viewed more favorably than he has ever been, according to polling. Um, yeah, I mean, I think a part of it, I mean, I think every president, like every new president getting elected coming in, usually gets a honeymoon. People are usually positive about them starting in like a new beginning. So usually they always start in a high position. But for Trump, I mean, this is especially notable, considering. he wasn't that popular after 2016. He's more popular than that even now. And we've seen like the Trump presidency already, and it was remarkably disapproved of at the time with with obviously the COVID pandemic and um, stuff that threatened the core of our democracy, like January 6th and election denialism. But it seems like despite all that, I mean, he's still Teflon Don at the end of the day and is powering through. I don't know. I feel like this just kind of goes to show to some extent that either the American people are very forgetful of what he's done in the past, or they're just so frustrated with how things are now, um, that they're just willing to accept, something new, no matter how bad it previously was.
I think another part of it is just like Americans were looking back then and they were like, ooh, this is not good. This is bad. But then after Biden, they were like, they started looking back and relative to the past 4 years. They thought the 4 years before that was better. And it's sort of all a relative game at this point. Like in Trump's 4 years, everyone was comparing back to Obama, which most
Mm,
people view favorably retrospectively. So they're like, ooh, maybe Obama's years were better. But Biden versus Trump, most people would say Trump's years were better. So
yes,
you
as
know,
I mean,
so
as a whole, but not because of
yes,
Trump, but yes.
well, that is your opinion. Of course, this is why we are bridging the gap. But either way, we should now move on to certain other people that are were notable in the year of 2024. Of course, Kamala Harris, the eventual Democrat
Hmm.
nominee, also the current vice president, had this very crazy jump in favorability. I honestly thought this was response bias, some honeymoon at the beginning. I was like, this must just be Kamala people, tuning into polling because, once she hopped in the race, and surely she's still really unfavorable. Maybe that was right. Maybe all along she was unfavorable and polling just got it wrong because obviously she lost by a lot. But, you know, she still had this remarkable period where she was net zero, but now she has started to fade as even Democrats are like, why did we nominate her, I guess.
I mean, I would say it does make sense why she had the approval spike, of course. I think a lot of people, Democrats, independents, were just happy to have a new option to counter to Trump, like against Trump rather, other than Biden. So, and I think
That's true.
the fact that she provided that, many people were appreciative of it. So obviously that's what led to her favorability increasing so high. I don't really have an explanation for why it's continued to decline since the election. Maybe it's just because, I mean, I guess maybe just because she's just like like she failed to beat Trump, and like that's like kind of fed into some maybe some Democrats souring on her a bit. But I think as a whole though, I mean, I don't think many Democrats blame her, at least in like more elitist circles and like talking heads in the media and stuff, and what you hear from other Democratic politicians. I don't feel they really blame her for losing to Trump. I think the perception is just that incumbent parties all around the world have been getting whipped in the aftermath of the pandemic, no matter if they're liberal or conservative, just because economic conditions after the pandemic have been pretty poor globally. So the fact that, so yeah, like they don't really see Kamala as being able to do anything. And in fact, they're still largely grateful to Kamala, and the fact that if Biden was still in the place running against Trump, she would like Democrats likely would have taken a much worse loss.
Okay, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Do you want to start with the House leaders?
Yes. Okay. So, I mean, the first House leader here, we have Mike Johnson, current Speaker of the House. Right now, I mean, I feel like in Congress, you start seeing a lot more of like negative approval ratings just because Congress itself is so unpopular. Like, I think no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you could look at Congress and see how ineffective it is at getting stuff done for the American people. Yeah, Mike Johnson, like, it's understandable why he's unfavorable here. Um, I mean, obviously, like his favorability and unfavorability isn't going to be that high to begin with because he isn't that well known of a figure, despite being third in line for the presidency. But, yeah, like he is the part of the reason he's unpopular is because he's just unable to really make anybody happy on his side. Like, how should I phrase this? I mean, obviously, Democrats don't like him, um, because he's like ultra conservative. Like, yeah, but Democrats as a whole are just generally not going to approve of that. Um, but he has a problem among Republicans, and a part of the reason I think he's leaning unfavorable here is because a lot of the further right Republicans, more fiscally conservative, they are not really they don't really like Johnson. They don't like how he's willing to compromise with Democrats occasionally. And stuff like that, and they think he should be more hardline. And I think his inability or his struggling to appease all the factions of his party is part of the reason why he's just not favorable.
Okay. Yeah, I think you covered most of it. Johnson's just working with too small of a majority to not work with people, Democrats at all. I think
Hmm.
it's quite difficult at times. Obviously, Democrats also control the Senate right now, so you can't exactly pass like only Republican bills. Maybe next time around, if he gets the speaker gavel in, like 7 days, we'll be talking about that. Regardless, we have Hakeem Jeffries, who's the Democrat minority leader in the House. He's a little more at net zero, but it's more just because I guess people know about him less. I think that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense because he is not the Speaker of the House, and so he's not even in line for the presidency. He's not behind the president when he gives the State of the Union. He's very unknown. I guess only 60% of the population even knows who he is. So this makes a lot of sense. And this 60% really of poll respondents. So,
Yes.
even worse sample. But his actual raw favorability is around the same as Mike Johnson, really just the unfavorable hire on Johnson's side.
Hmm.
Perhaps also just, more educated respondents are going to be more likely to be Democrats, maybe, so they know Mike Johnson more. Let's move on though. Chuck
Yeah.
Schumer, do you want to talk about
Yeah, I mean, I
Jeffries
can
real
take it. Yeah,
quick?
Chuck Schumer's been around. No, yeah,
Okay.
Chuck Schumer's been around for a bit. Current Senate Majority Leader, likely going to be Senate Minority Leader, um, for the Democrats. Yeah, I mean, he's been in politics a long time. I think that's kind of what's contributed to his unfavorable view here. Yeah, very unfavorable. I think his name's a little more well known, but yeah, I mean, I feel like just yeah, it's just like him being a staple of like more of a symbol of Congress and becoming more associated with Congress not really getting stuff done. I feel like, any representative or senator from Congress, I feel like as they become more well known, like as being associated with the institution itself and the institution itself being ineffective, I think it's just going to give you a negative perception here. And so I think we see a perfect example of that with Chuck Schumer here. Yeah,
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, speaking of that, Mitch McConnell down here
even
at
worse.
minus
Yeah.
37 on the spread. I mean, his favorables are not, his raw favorables isn't that far behind Chuck's, but his unfavorable, I mean, he's one of the people that really, I think everyone dislikes. I mean, I don't really know many people that like Mitch McConnell. I
Yeah.
don't know if I know a single person really that likes Mitch McConnell. I'm surprised he even has a 20%. That's one in five people liking him. This might just be because people are just, Republican respondents just saying, I like every Republican that you give me, or, just establishment, more establishment Republicans. But really, I mean, seems even still too high for him. No one really likes this
Yeah.
guy.
The reason is just because everybody kind of has a reason to dislike Mitch McConnell, unfortunately for him. Obviously, Democrats are really not going to like him because due to the fact that he physically blocked Obama from getting Supreme Court justices, and did that whole act of
Man,
hypocrisy.
Republicans should be
And
grateful for that.
I know,
Yeah.
yeah, and like him getting those Supreme Court justices for Trump, three, but he basically single-handedly gave Trump three Supreme Court justices when he likely should have only gotten like one, I believe. Like I guess like speeding up, yeah, because he sped up Amy Coney Barrett's and kind of went against himself. But yeah, he's really responsible for that. So Democrats, of course, hate him for that. They don't like him for not committing to impeaching Trump after January 6th. He could have gotten rid of Trump right there, and he decided not to do it. So him like kind of taking a neutral stance on preventing Trump from running again instead of like blocking him. that's one of the reasons I primarily don't like him. And of course, MAGA Republicans have a reason to not like him because Trump doesn't like Mitch McConnell, and they see him as part of the deep state, which essentially I think he is. And
He is, yeah.
yeah,
To be
I
fair,
mean like
actually.
the face of the
Yeah.
deep state, and also because he's very much an internationalist, pro alliance, which I agree with Mitch McConnell more on, like in his stances on foreign policy. But yeah, like he's in stark contrast to Trump's isolationism and antagonism toward our allies. So, yeah, everyone really just has a reason to not like Mitch McConnell, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is at this point. I mean, he's on his way out. And speaking of that, we also have some interesting favorability ratings on people that are more on the way in, like John Thune, the new Senate Republican majority leader, because
Mm,
Republicans will be taking the majority. And so John Thune now here at -7, much better than Mitch McConnell's -37. People haven't really formed an opinion of him, but it is what it is. You also have some others that we haven't talked about, Elon Musk up here at +2. I guess people maybe are hopeful to see what him and Vivek Ramaswamy can do. Although today, is a little interesting, what they've been getting up to. JD Vance as well out here as a tie with same with basically Trump. I mean, I think Vance and Trump sort of just have a blank slate right now, clean slate to start over. If they can do well in the first year, that could really set the tone for their favorability throughout. If they can't make it through their first year, though, at even a neutral favorability like Biden did, that's going to be tough if they have some sort of disaster like Afghanistan. And down here, you
hmm
have some people that, I guess we haven't talked about Pelosi, but the former Speaker of the House uh
Yeah.
down here at -23, and AOC not doing too bad.
I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously Pelosi. I mean, again, like that's just because I think associated with Congress and and that kind of inefficiency of Congress is going to by default get you really low, in terms of favorability in the United States. And I think that is slightly impacting John Thune as well, even though he hasn't quite risen to leader yet. He's going to be he's the current second in line to be Senate Majority Leader, and come 2025, he will be Senate Majority Leader for the Republicans. As for the ones toward the top, Ramaswamy, Vance, and Musk, um, Elon. Okay, I'll start with Elon here. Elon, I've seen like a variety of polls. I've seen polls where he's like ever so slightly positive, and I've seen polls where he's ever so slightly negative. I think he's just overall a very controversial figure in U.S. politics right now. And, I'm not really sure. I mean, okay, I'm not going to start with my personal opinion. I'll keep it broad here. I think a lot of people aren't really sure if he should be playing the role of in government that he is. They think there should be a separation. Like they're not really comfortable as this goes for me as well. They're not really comfortable with the world's richest man, playing a role in guiding the government with the fear that, he's just doing it to enrich himself and for his own benefit, which is I think it's a very real and why he's so controversial in part. Um, Meanwhile, with Vance Ramaswamy, I think you're absolutely right. They do have room to grow or to fall. They're both like I feel like they're not as well known as they will be over the next few years. So yeah, they're kind of just sitting in that middle area right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, even though the so-called middle area is still pretty high, honestly. Like neutral is still pretty good at this point in American politics.
That's fair
So,
enough, honestly.
yeah, like most people would be very happy to have like a neutral approval, especially like Biden, for example, to
Yes.
stayed in. A few more interesting points, on the topic of Elon and Vivek. Americans largely are hopeful and support Doge, Department of Government Efficiency. I think even you were talking about how you're hopeful to see if they can actually, cut the right regulations and take out
Yeah.
the inefficiencies that need to go. But I do think Democrats could sour on this soon. We'll see how this works out. And then just one more funny poll. What's the reason Harris lost?
Oh, interesting.
Economy, border, late entry into the race, or because of she's a woman of color? These
Hmm.
are the top four reasons from my echelon poll. So just thought it was
Personally,
interesting to look at it.
do you have a prime reason you think she lost?
I think definitely economy, like number
Yes.
one.
I agree as well.
Definitely, if I had as a respondent, I would put economy. I personally don't think woman of color or late entry was that big of a deal. I think late entry might have actually been good for her. Actually, I think if she was exposed to the national media market even more, it might have hurt her. Yeah.
I mean, I think that you could go both sides with the late entry argument in particular. Because it helped because she didn't really have to face a primary challenger, but it also hurt because, she lost a lot of the experience she might have needed, and like she lost a lot of information that could have been important to her, like opportunities to gain information about what her potential weaknesses were going in and stuff. But yeah, going back to the economy point, yes, I absolutely agree. I think just generally the entire world has been suffering from inflation, and people haven't really been happy with the state of the economy since 2019, since pre-COVID, of course. So I think there's just been like a global frustration about it. And I don't really think there was much that could be done in the end. I think there was just a large dissatisfaction. People wanted a different approach and they got it.
Yeah, they got Trump, and they'll be getting him very soon. So that's about it for this video. Thanks so much for watching and taking a look at the new polling data post-election with us. Make sure to leave a like on this video down below and comment down below any future suggestions for videos as we actually read the comments on every video. Subscribe to the channel down below because we're so close to 1,000 subscribers. We could hit it before the end of the year and turn on post notifications. And yeah, thanks for watching. Share this video with your family and friends.
See you guys.